Hey there, it's Mr. Johns. Welcome to this second episode of 3D Fingerboard Park in SketchUp, where we will be adding on to our little fingerboard park. In episode 1, if you haven't seen that, please go back and watch it first. In episode 1, we created a launch ramp right here with a steep angle for launching, for jumping, and a much smaller kicker ramp for just simple kick tricks. And of course, a grinding rail, which is sitting on top of, so it's round rail sitting on top of two concrete posts. So that's what we did in episode 1. Just 3 fairly simple fingerboard or skateboard obstacles. And so today's episode, we want to add a set of stairs and a quarter pipe. Those are our goals. Nothing too difficult. Once you're comfortable in SketchUp, you can almost make anything, and that's kind of the whole point. So with stairs, it's a skill that is useful for other things. Obviously, stairs, right? So for a house, for a cabin, etc. This is nothing different. These are just stairs, and so we're going to make 25 millimeter steps, and so I'm going to start with a vertical line 25 tall. And so if you click, drag, let go, and type in 25 mm, 25 millimeter, and hit enter, you will end up with a 25 millimeter tall step. All right, so just waiting for the video to catch up here. All right, so we did 25, and then we want to go over 25. And so it's the same skill, sideways 25. And pay attention to the color of the line. So we're staying on blue axis, that's vertical, and red axis is horizontal. So super important that you do that, or you could be drawing on the floor without realizing it. So we're just going 25, 25, 25, 25, 25. And so it's always good to rotate as well, just to make sure you are drawing on the right axis. And then 25 up here. So we want to end up with 3 stairs, I think. I'm trying to figure out how tall we really want this thing. I think we'll go back up 1, 2, 3, 3 steps, and then a landing. And the landing should be wide enough for you to land on. And so maybe twice that. So maybe 50 millimeters would be better for the landing. So in that case, you can just click, drag, let go, type in 50 mm, enter, and then we'll go straight down blue, and you'll notice that it usually stops, turns into a little diamond shape to say, hey, you're parallel, you're even with where you started. And again, I'm going to rotate around just to make sure, and then connect the dots. That's a red line, red axis, and it should always turn solid if you've done it correctly, meaning it's a solid shape, white on one side, gray on the other. So this is not much different than how they make real stairs, so where you make your pattern first. With real stairs, you would make 2 of these, and then you would connect them with steps, obviously. So in SketchUp, you simply just pull it. So much easier. So we just pull it across. And 100 millimeters is kind of what I was going for on everything, but I think steps, you're going to want to do some sliding, grinding across. So kind of similar to the grinding rail, but maybe not the exact length. And so we'll just double it. We'll make it 200 millimeters wide. And so for your assignment, if you're a student of mine following along, I am looking for measurements as well. So after you create each obstacle, do add, and I'll go back and add them as well to all my obstacles, do add dimension lines for width, height, and depth. So that shows me quickly that this is 200 millimeters wide. It is 100 millimeters deep. Each step is 25 millimeters as well. So that's what I'm looking for. And the other part is please paint each obstacle a different color or pattern so they all stand out. So can't quite see the full screen, but you get the idea there. So 100 millimeters tall, 200 millimeters wide is the stair, and then I'm just going to go ahead and paint this something just so it stands out. Paint every part, rotate around, make sure you get. I don't need the bottom. Can't see the bottom, but get all the sides painted. All right, that looks pretty good, and so we'll move on to our second obstacle, which will be a quarter pipe, which is kind of the highlight of most skate parks. Of course, 2 quarter pipes put together make a half pipe, and so that part will be pretty easy as well. And so we want the half pipe to be big enough and the quarter pipe to be big enough that you could drop in from above and do some pretty cool tricks back and forth with your fingerboard. So we'll start with a line on the ground. All right, so that's red axis. Make sure your line is red. I'm trying to think how big we really want this thing to be. I'm kind of making this up as I go. I have a list of obstacles that I want, but I really didn't have any idea on how to make them or the size. So simply doing this for the very first time in this video. So blue axis is straight up, and in order to make, it's always good to make the side first because SketchUp allows you to pull. So because we want to put 2 of these together eventually, we don't want it to be on the ground, like a smooth transition on the ground. So thinking we need some kind of lip on this side. And so to connect those, because we want it to be a ramp and not a just not a flat surface, we're going to use the 2-point arc. I'm going ahead and get some measurements in here so you can follow along here. So 200 millimeters, 20 millimeters tall for that little piece, and 100 millimeters tall at the back. And then I'm going to connect those with 2-point arcs. And you got to be kind of careful with this. You want to make sure you're on the right axis, and you also want to pay attention to the slope. We don't want it. We want it to be flat in the middle. It can't be below that point, because if it is like that, you're going to end up with a jump at the bottom on both sides, which is not what you want. So we want just a slight, we want flat, and then right about here looks pretty good. And so I'm just going to click once I'm happy with that. Make sure the lowest, oh, that was a little bit too much. Let me redo. Make sure the lowest point is the dot, is the center. So I'm going to be really careful with that. And the angle is really going to affect how the whole thing works. And so that looks pretty good. I'm not sure if it's steep enough though, right? Like it should probably be taller than the stairs. Like a quarter pipe and a half pipe is usually the biggest thing in the skate park. So might want to make that just a little bit bigger as I'm thinking this through, deciding whether to, at this point, it's easier to start over. For me, it's always easier just to start over than to try to modify anything. So I'm going to go higher this time, and so we can try different heights. That looks massive. That looks way too big. So I think that's 200 millimeters tall. That just seems way too big, way too tall. It doesn't even look, your perspective in the 3D world, even though that doesn't different angles, that doesn't look like it was 200 and 200. It looks like it was way taller, but you have to trust the measurements. So we got 200 millimeter depth, and probably something like 175 might be better. Well, that's not 175. I must have missed the 1. That probably is 75. So Control Z is your best friend in SketchUp. So undo, right? Control Z. So you want to click, drag up, make sure it's on blue, let go, type in the measurement you want. In my case, whoa, that's still too big. I want 75, I believe, or 175 is what I want. Let's measure that and see what we have here. That's really hard to see. Yeah, that's 175. Okay, that is 175. It's a little hard to see against the dark background. had I do it over again, I probably would not have painted the ground dark. But as long as I can hold it, get the measurements in the sky, I can see it a little bit better, or paint the obstacle a light color. So blue axis, let's go ahead and go this little lip on this side. Make that just maybe a little bit taller this time. And 2-point arc this time. That should be much more fun coming down on a skateboard. Look at that thing. Now you can drop into that, get some speed up. That's exactly what it should look like. Now, usually there's an area like on top of the stairs, some kind of landing that you start on. So I probably will add that as well. The width, I think 200 millimeters is kind of what I'm going with the wider obstacles. 100 is good for the little small ramps, but I think 200 wide, or sorry, yeah, 200 wide for these bigger things is probably appropriate. But you can see it definitely needs a landing, a place to land, place to start, and place to drop in. And in SketchUp, it's so easy, you just pull. So we want that top to be a given measurement so we can duplicate it, and so also so you know what it is. So 59 right now. Let's make it an even number. So we're going to pull that out, and we'll put some measurements on that here in a second. So you can see that seems to be about the right amount of space for a fingerboard to be on, to land on, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that looks good. So that's a quarter pipe. 2 of those together would be a half pipe. And don't forget, we want to you want to highlight the whole thing, right click, and make it a group once you're happy with it, so you don't accidentally mess it up. So 275 is the total depth, 200 and then another 75 for the landing, and then it's 175 millimeters tall. And I can't quite remember what I put for the other side, the lip. I'll throw a measurement on that here in a second so we can see. Let's see, we ended up with 75 millimeter landing, and that should definitely be 200. Just always good to measure everything. So I need to do that front edge as well so we know how tall that is. But first, I'm just going to say, okay, so just making sure here, yeah, we're 200 from here to here, and then 75 for the landing for a total of 275. It's good to have that all there. And then we want to measure this little part too, so you know how high. So 30 millimeters was just something I came up with. It could really be anything, but 30 looks great. So that's what I'd like you to do. All those measurements, please, if you're following along with the assignment. And then we're going to paint this. I think these look great in wood because a lot of people make them out of plywood, so it just looks classic. So if you do use wood, there are 6 or 7 or 9 different colors of wood. So if you like wood for these, just use a different color. And I like how the scale, the scale is way off. So as far as the wood, like the wood is made for full-size things. It's not made for fingerboard parts. So you see all that, you'll see that color there. Didn't quite look perfect, but it's good enough for now. So we'll catch you next time in episode 3. For now, Mr. Johns is out.